All right, so in terms of some of the practice problems that you are looking at, I gave you examples on pages 1 through 11. Again, please work at your own pace. You do not have to finish them all, but these are examples. And if you are struggling with some of the pages or some of the questions, please let me know so I can help you. And also, this will give you plenty of examples on how to do the easy crosses so that later on next week when we move on to other material, you will hopefully know what you're doing. So one of the questions was for monohybrid practice problems. Question 2, it had 3 different parts, right? So in rabbits, black fur is dominant to white fur. You are performing the following crosses. There are 3 different examples, and I will go through each one of them, right? So for the first one, you are crossing a heterozygous rabbit with a homozygous recessive rabbit. So I'm looking at the heterozygous rabbit, which is big B, little b, and I'm looking at homozygous recessive rabbit, which are 2 small letters. The first thing that I'm doing is I'm setting up my Punnett square. So I will take one parent, I will put big B over here, little b over there. This is parent 1. I'm taking parent 2, I'm putting one small letter here, one small letter here, and then from there, I'm going to move all the letters into the boxes, right? So I'm taking capital B, moving it here, capital B, moving it here, lowercase b, moving it here, lowercase b, moving it here. So that's 2 boxes. This small letter, this small letter, this here, right? So I am done with filling in my Punnett square. From there, I'm looking at my genotypic ratios. So I'm looking at all the unique genotypes. 2 out of 4 of my boxes have big B, little b. That's 50%. 2 of my boxes will have little b. Again, that's 50% because 2 out of 4 is 50%. If I'm looking at ratios, you can put 2 are big B, little b, and 2 are little b, but really we would simplify that as 1 to 1. If I'm looking at phenotypes, again, if I have at least one capital letter, I know that it's going to be a dominant phenotype. In this case, I know dominant is black fur. So it's 50% black to 50% white, and again, that is 1 to 1. The next question says 2 heterozygous individuals. Again, I will write them both out. I like having a key. You have one heterozygous, that's big B, little b. You have your second heterozygous, which is also big B, little b. And I will look over here, and I will set up my Punnett square. So one parent is at the top, one parent's on the bottom. I fill in all my boxes, and again, I'm looking for unique genotypes. So you have one box that has 2 capital letters, that's 25%, that's 1 out of 4. 2 boxes will have big B, little b, 2 out of 4 is 50%. 1 out of 4 has 2 smaller case letters, so again, I have 25 big B, little b, 50 big B, little b, and 25% big B, little b. If I'm looking at genotypes, again, I'm counting boxes. 1 big B, right? 1, 2, so now 2 big B, little b, and 1 little b. So 1 to 2 to 1, that's my genotypic ratio. Now for phenotype, again, I'm looking for that capital dominant letter. So I have 1, 2, 3. So 3 out of 4, or 75%, will have black fur, and 1 out of 4, or 25%, will have white fur. That's the same thing with the ratios, right? 3 black to 1 white. So my genotype and phenotype percentages always add up to 100. And then my ratios, in this case, will always add up to 100%, so 4 out of 4 boxes. If I'm looking at the third example, I'm looking at a heterozygous with a homozygous dominant. Again, my heterozygous parent stays the same. My homozygous dominant will have 2 capital letters. I will set up my Punnett square, parent 1, parent 2, distribute everything. If I'm looking at my unique genotypes, I have 2 that are big B, versus 2 that are big B, little b. So percent-wise, that's 50-50. Genotype, again, you can write 2 big B to 2 big B to 2 big B, little b, or you can just simplify to 1 to 1. And then every single box here will have a capital letter, so capital meaning dominant. So 100% will have black fur, and you will have 1 in terms of the phenotypic ratio that is black. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, I know a lot of you had a problem with this question because it is a little bit tricky, right? So the first thing you have to do is read carefully. If you read the first sentence, it will tell you a black guinea pig crossed with an albino guinea pig produces 12 black offsprings. right? So you are assuming that 12 is the maximum or the total number of offsprings that are produced. So 100% will be black. And then it says when the albino is crossed with the second black one, meaning one of these 12, they will have 7 black and 5 albino offsprings. All right, so the first thing that we need to figure out is what is the dominant allele? Is it albino or is it black? So the way that I am looking at this is if you take a black guinea pig and an albino guinea pig, all of them will show the phenotype of one of the parents. In this case, you know that the black allele is the dominant one, right? So the first thing that I will do is I will make a key. I will say that big B is black, little b is albino. The second piece of information that I have is that I know that 7 and 5 add up to 12, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 7 and 5 are almost 50-50, which means that I know what I will put into my Punnett square, right? If 50% of the offsprings are black, I know at least one of their letters is a capital B. If 50% of the offsprings are albino, I know that you have to use a homozygous recessive genotype. So that helps me out a lot because when I am looking at trying to figure out what this question mark is, I can basically pull these letters out of the box and see what happens, right? So the first thing that I do is there's a capital B here and here. I will pull this out here. There's a lowercase b here, so one of these belongs to this parent. So this is the genotype for one of the parents. If I'm looking here, I'm trying to figure out what the second letter is. Well, these homozygous recessive potential offsprings are showing me that if you have 2 small letters combined, one comes from one parent, the second one comes from the second parent, right? So I know that this is the albino, and I know that this is one of the 12, right? So if we're looking at the question, these 12 black offsprings, or the second black ones, as the question says, right? These are the ones that are heterozygous. Please let me know if that made sense. If not, I will help you more with this question. All right. Now, another question that someone had was basically, mom and dad look one way, child looks a different way. Why is this magic trait appearing? Right? The example I used from class was when you have mom and dad and both have brown eyes, but you have blue eyes. That's kind of weird. You don't look like mom, you don't look like dad, right? No, you're probably not adopted. So here it says mom and dad have straight hair, Hermione has curly hair, right? So she has a weird trait showing up out of nowhere. So here I know that I need to figure out what is the dominant trait and what is the recessive trait, right? A magic trait is never going to be hidden if it's a dominant trait. So here I'm making my key, right? I know that straight hair will be my capital S because that's the dominant trait. I know that curly hair will be my recessive trait, so I'll make this my lowercase s, right? And then based on this, what must be the genotypes for the parents? So here, I'm going to assume that the parents are heterozygous, right? Meaning one capital letter and one lowercase letter. And once I make my Punnett square, I can see that right over here, right? So 2 lowercase s's, that is how you get Hermione's curly hair, because that's the only way for the recessive phenotype to show up. So if I'm looking at the different ratios, I know that it's 1 capital S, capital S. I know it's 2 capital S, lowercase s, and 1 lowercase s, lowercase s, right? Or I know that it's 3 with straight hair to 1 curly hair. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, some of the hardest parts for these questions is figuring out what's dominant, what's recessive. So if you have trouble with that, please let me know and I can help you basically tell you how I figure out some of this logic.